Hyde Park Barracks, Sydney. History. Hyde Park Barracks, Barracks. The Mint. In return, the three gentlemen received the monopoly on the purchase of spirits for 3 years. As a result, the building became known as the Rum Hospital. While the architect is unknown, the inspiration for the form of the buildings is thought to have come from Macquarie's time in India, especially the Madras Government House. The hospital, however, is constructed to the standard institutional army plan of the time as seen at Victoria Barracks. The hospital was originally constructed with 3 wings. The northern wing is now part of Parliament House, the central wing has been demolished, and the southern wing became the Mint. The Legislative Council of New South Wales had begun petitioning the British government for the establishment of a mint in 1851. The gold rush had brought into circulation large amounts of unrefined gold that was threatening the official currency. The British government finally approved the establishment of a mint in 1853, sending equipment and 20 staff. The mint began operation on 14 May 1855. Now known simply as the Mint, its official title was the Royal Mint Sydney Branch. The first 5 years of operation saw exports of gold fall sharply as over £1 million worth of gold was converted into sovereign and half-sovereign coins each year. In 1868, Sydney's coins were recognised as legal tender in all British colonies, but it was not until February 1886 that they were accepted in Britain. The coins were identical to those produced in Britain, except for a small mint mark. Federation encouraged the consolidation of minting activities in Canberra, Melbourne, and Perth. On the departure of the mint, a series of government departments sought office space in the buildings. Similar to the barracks next door, with no security of tenure, there was little incentive to maintain the buildings, and instead Fibro buildings filled all available spaces to meet the requirements of the Family Endowment Department 1927-1940 State Headquarters of National Emergency Service 1940-1900. The Court Reporting Branch, District Courts, and Parliamentary Library moved in during the 1950s. Fibro-lined courtrooms were created within the former coining factory for use by them. In the 1930s, with increasing use of the motor car and demand for parking spaces, the Mint's Macquarie Street gates were removed, a common fate for the gates of public buildings at the time. They were eventually acquired by Barker College at Hornsby in 1937, following the efforts of its council chairman, Sir John Butters. This was not the first time a school had acquired significant city gates. St. Joseph's College at Hunters Hill had bought the Sydney Town Hall gates and fencing when they became redundant with construction of Town Hall Railway Station. Restoration of the buildings, announced in 1975, were undertaken in 1977–79, with the intended purpose of utilizing at least the Mint as a museum. In 1982, the Mint opened as a branch of the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences. In 1998, ownership of the site was transferred to the Historic Houses Trust, who continued to operate a small museum, plus a cafe. In 2004, restoration and construction was undertaken to enable the HHT to use the site as a head office. The former coining factory was sympathetically remodeled into offices, and the superintendent's office to hold the Caroline Simpson Library and Research Collection. A new theatrette and foyer were also added. The work was overseen by architect Richard Francis Jones of FJMT Architects, Clive Lucas Stapleton and Partners as conservation architects, and Gaddon Mackay Logan as archaeologists. In July 2016, the Mint celebrated its 200th anniversary of continuous civic function with a symposium of future for the past as part of a program of events. Description: the Hyde Park Barracks are located in Queen's Square, on the corner of Macquarie Street and Prince Albert Road, Sydney. The complex is bounded by high walls on the south and western sides. The northern and eastern boundaries are marked by ranges of structures. Located in the middle of the enclosure is the principal barracks or dormitory block. Near the northeastern and northwestern corners of the dormitory block are two weeping lilies Waterhouse floribunda. The remainder of the gravelled courtyard is interspersed with sandstone pathways to facilitate disabled access. The major elements, namely the dormitory block, northern perimeter, and eastern perimeter structures, are discussed separately below in more detail. Principal barracks/dormitory block. The main building is a three-story sandstock brick, gabled former convict barracks of Georgian style. It has sandstone foundations, sills and string courses, while the pedimented gable is decorated by a shaped stone panel containing an early colonial clock. The clock is surmounted by a crown and inscribed L. Macquarie, Esquire, Governor 1817. The pedimented temple form of the front is divided horizontally by a string course at the first and attic floors, and vertically by simple piers or pilasters, finished by Greenway's distinctive double string course beneath the eaves, relieving arches implying an arcade to the basement story, shallow overhanging domes to the roof ventilator, lodges and corner pavilions, shaped blocks. The facade is simple but elegant, and divided by brick pilasters and arched recesses to the ground floor. The central door has a semicircular fanlight above, while the windows, 24 panes to ground and first floors, and 16 panes to the second floor, have flat lintels. During the late 1980s, concerted efforts were made to return the barracks to their appearance c. 1820. External doorways made to access the now demolished court buildings have been carefully infilled, and it is now difficult to determine where some of these openings were. The stone string courses and sills are replacements, as is the shingling on the roof. By necessity, new joinery for doors and windows was constructed. Internally, partitions have been removed, again in an attempt to reveal Greenway's original design. The floor plan of all three levels is essentially identical, consisting of 4 rooms opening off 2 corridors forming a cross, the 2 rooms to the west being slightly smaller. 2 stairwells provide access between the levels, the first in the northeastern corner and the second, also abutting the northern wall, in the hallway crossing the barracks north/south. Restoration works were unable to remove all evidence relating to district court. Some fireplaces, doorways, and transom lights are now unusually placed. The door joinery shows evidence of the successive adaptations to the building during its use as a court. The skirtings, architraves, doors, and windows represent 2 periods c. 1884-7 and c. 1980. The upper flights of the staircases are thought to be original, the lower flights being interspersed with Victorian repairs. The internal structure of the staircases has been augmented to ensure visitor safety. Based on a pattery block and ornamental device and mortise openings in the floor, uncovered during conservation works together with documentary evidence, one room has been fitted with hammock frames. Given the evidence, it is thought this mirrors the sleeping arrangements during the convict era. The frames have a rough adzed appearance and consist of half-round architraves, skirtings, and plain pattery blocks. Paint and plaster wall finishes have been incorporated into the aesthetic, including signage, which remains exposed. The removal of later false ceilings and linings in some sections has revealed earlier finishes, including the original roof structure on the second level. In others, parts of the later ceilings have been used to conceal track hangers and display partitions. Track-hung spotlights and recessed down lights have been introduced to illuminate the museum displays. Perimeter wall and outbuildings. Barracks Square. The northern boundary of the barracks site is lined with 6 structures of both 1 and 2 stories. Constructed of brick, those of 2 stories have had the second story rendered in imitation of ashlar and painted off-white. In the northwestern corner, the original cell block remains, as does the superintendent's apartment midway along the boundary. In the eastern corner, remnants of the original corner pavilion is visible from outside the barracks square. The northwestern corner pavilion, originally used as a cell block, has been substantially altered during its use by the district court. Further alterations were undertaken to convert the cell block and part of the structure to the east into a cafe. Sections of the ground floor are open to visitors. A wooden platform has been constructed to allow the exposed archaeological features to be viewed. The interior walls have had various layers of paint and plaster removed in sections, so as to display the multiple renovations the interior underwent. The effect created is that of partially completed restoration, a work in progress. The southern perimeter is marked by a wall constructed of stone from the Gladesville Mental Hospital c. 1963. It follows the northern extent of Greenway's original structure, which was demolished in 1909. The wall is also marked by the Australian monument to the Great Irish Famine. The monument consists of a plaque on the wall and a metal table set with a dinner plate protruding at a 45-degree angle from the wall. The memorial was opened by Governor-General of Australia, Sir William Deane, on 28 August 1999. The eastern perimeter is marked by a conglomerate of 3 buildings. The northern 2 are of 2 stories, while a small southern section has just 1 level. Central to the structures is a set of external stairs, which dominate the western facade. The stairs lead to a balcony running the length of the buildings, which provides access to the series of unconnected first-floor rooms. On the ground floor, public toilets are provided in the southern section, while the remainder of the building provides office space to the museum. The western section consists of a wall with a central set of gates, flanked by a lodge on each side. The southern lodge was altered during the realignment of Prince Albert Road. The northern lodge is accessible by visitors, having a wooden platform to protect the exposed archaeological deposits. A fireplace is evident in the northern wall. The interior walls also display the various internal treatments, the plaster having been removed to expose the brick construction. Archaeology. Formal archaeological investigations began at the Hyde Park Barracks during the 1980s restoration work. Originally Carol Powell, who was employed to research the archival material, was also asked to catalogue artifacts exposed by the conservation works. It quickly became apparent that the magnitude and preservation of the archaeological deposits required more attention, and Wendy Thorpe was employed in September 1980. Thorpe excavated a series of test trenches before recommending a larger-scale program was needed. Patricia Burritt completed what was known as the Stage Roman II excavations. Trenches were located to over all aspects of the barracks. Small-scale trenches were excavated near the entrance to the dormitory block and in the northern perimeter buildings, formerly the bakery. A large open area was excavated in the courtyard east of the dormitory block. Extensive excavations were also undertaken in the underfloor spaces between levels 1 and 2 and levels 2 and 3. The last of these excavations exposed a remarkable artifact collection of paper and fabric, items not commonly preserved in archaeological deposits. In 2006, a publication was released by the Historic Houses Trust that interprets these artifacts. Concealed for up to 160 years in the cavities between floorboards and ceilings, the assemblage is a unique archaeological record of institutional confinement, especially of women. The underfloor assemblage dates to the period 1848 to 1886, during which a female immigration depot and a government asylum for infirm and destitute women occupied the second and third floors of the barracks. Since the completion of the 1980s restoration works, any disturbance of the ground has been preceded by archaeological excavation, seeing a number of smaller excavations carried out for the laying of pipes, etc., and the construction of the Australian monument to the Great Irish Famine. There remains the potential for further archaeological materials to be uncovered. Museum. In 1994, Hyde Park Barracks underwent conservation and adaptation work by award-winning architects Tonkin, Zuleika Greer, and conservation architects Clive Lucas Stapleton and Partners. The completed project won the Australian Institute of Architects' National Lachlan Macquarie Award in 1992. Now, the newly installed Hyde Park Barracks is a museum operated by the Historic Houses Trust of New South Wales. Tourists who visit the building discover the daily lives of convicts and other occupants through exhibitions on Sydney's male convict labour force, Australia's convict system, an innovative soundscape, excavated artifacts, exposed layers of building fabric, and the complex's rooms and spaces. In June 2015, Mark Speakman, the Minister for the Environment of New South Wales, announced Unlocking Heritage, a 2-year program aimed at giving children the opportunity to experience Sydney's living museums. This program will allow students to wear convict clothing and sleep in the barracks hammocks. $1 million has been allocated for this program. Museum Director Mark Goggin thinks that children will learn more about history if they can experience it hands-on, particularly for the kids to wear the convict shirts, eat the gruel, sleep over with their mates in hammocks, and imagining what life was like 200 years ago. The program is starting out with children and hoping to expand to adult participation. Heritage listing. World Heritage List. In July 2010, at the 34th session of the UNESCO World Heritage Committee, the Hyde Park Barracks and 10 other Australian sites with a significant association with convict transportation were inscribed as a group on the World Heritage List as the Australian Convict Sites. The listing explains that the 11 sites present the best surviving examples of large-scale convict transportation and the colonial expansion of European powers through the presence and labor of convicts. Of the 11 sites, the Old Great North Road, Old Government House at Parramatta, and Cockatoo Island are also within the Sydney region. Australian National Heritage List. The site was placed on the National Heritage List on 1 August 2007. It was recognized as a turning point in the management of convicts in the colony, as the government could now exercise more effective control over convicts, for its links with Governor Macquarie and his role in developing the colony's infrastructure, and as a demonstration of the skill of its architect, Francis Greenway. New South Wales State Heritage List. Operations. According to the Living Museum website, the fees for admission as of 2015 are $10 for adult admission, $5 for children or commissions, $20 for families, 2 adults and 2 children, and free to members. Group and school tours are available by phoning the museum. Hours of operation are 10 and 5 p.m. daily, closed on Christmas and Good Friday. The Hyde Barracks are 1/4 of the Sydney Living History Museum series. The other 3 are the Susanna Place Museum, the Museum of Sydney, and the Justice and Police Museum. A pass can be purchased at any of the locations that will enable visitors to visit all 4 locations at a discounted price. Adults $18, children and concessions $9. The pass is valid for 3 months. Gallery.